Ah, well, the hell with it. This battle is Fleurus. I mentioned at the end of Hotch that I'd probably play something else. But, you know, this looks like a small one. It's only 11 turns. They're all small maps, but in a couple of, it'll fit my time schedule well. And instead of learning something else smaller and playing that, I kind of was in the mood to do another one anyway. I always lie. Okay, so this is a battle where the Protestants are trying to break through the Catholics to relieve a siege that Spinola is holding. And I'd really be interested. I realize this is really kind of focused on Tilly's battles, but for these early battles, people like Spinola would be interesting. Of course, here we have it almost all Spanish, or Spanish and Walloon. Yeah, there's some Germans. Force facing a Protestant force under Mansfeld. I'm glad to see him in the battle. However, there are problems. Mansfeld's force hasn't been paid enough. So they're a little surly in this battle. And what else do we have? Well, we have some kind of weird stuff here. So, for example, you have an option to replace smaller infantry units with these double-sized units. Now, I assume in total strength it looks like it's about the same amount. You get more, frontage with these smaller units. You also get more maneuverability. It's the Dutch system versus something more influenced by the Tercio system. As the Protestant player, I feel like I would rather, especially since I'm on the attack, have those more maneuverable, faster, well, not really faster, but better heavy infantry, in my opinion. So we'll give them that. Got some artillery in place. The Protestants thrown forward a little bit with a couple of guns, and a little to the oblique here, and, to the side. A couple of Spanish guns more towards the center, but still also trying to, just take advantage of the terrain as much as possible. One cool thing about this one, this is going to have gentle slopes. That means the armies can really kind of engage without too much worry about the terrain. Speaking of the terrain, this is the big feature. It's all treated as chateau hexes, and in this system, that means cav and infantry with artillery integral, but we don't have any of that here, can't enter the spaces. They can't get through the walls. That provides a very strong protection for these light infantry that are in there, because their biggest worry is usually the cav. The cav's centered over here against them, and it's not going to be able to do much to them. It can ride around and shoot at them, but cav doesn't really work well that way in this game. So probably have to figure out something to do with the cav. We also have these wagons here. Now I'm going to have to look up the wagons rules, so I'll get into them a little later. I haven't bothered yet. That's part of the Spanish defensive line, but these aren't like those pike wagons. This is just their supply wagons, but they've thrown them there as a means of anchoring the infantry flank over here, whereas this has some terrain to protect it. We also have 4 victory point hexes, and that's the only special victory point situation in this game. Kind of forces the Protestants to attack, to indicate that they're in a hurry to break through and, get through here. What else is special? Okay, the only other, these guys are in command if they're in the chateau. Otherwise, they're part of the right cavalry wing, which probably don't want them to come out of the chateau for the most part. But we'll see. If they're not doing any good there, they can. All the Protestant cav are marked for special rules. That nice little reminder for them. Their special rule is, one, they can't, because they haven't been paid, they're somewhat mutinous. Some of them have just left the field, These are the ones that are here. They can't intercept unless they're 1 hex away, which means you're not going to see any great cavalry countercharges here. They're not going to get momentum on their enemy that way. And also, if they try to attack, they have to make a morale check just before they come into the enemy unit, or they'll kind of break off and not be that interested in fighting. That's going to cause some real problems where, you know, maybe traffic jams happen and all kind of stuff like that. So this should be kind of an interesting little fight. Get our turn marker in place, and of course the Protestants, again, Mansfeld doesn't count as overall commander. He can take that role by the optional, but that means his wing isn't in command, which probably you don't want to do. And the Catholics do have one. They have good old Cordoba here. Should be interesting. Okay, so I went and looked up the wagons. They do 2 things, basically. If they're captured, well, they're worth 10 victory points if they're captured. So they are of some value. Don't want to just abandon them. But beyond that, they have their own line on the terrain effects chart. Now, for the most part, they don't affect movement, but they do affect line of sight, and they cause a penalty to fire in close combat, a defensive advantage, to being stacked with them. I'm not completely convinced that that's going to be terribly helpful. It would be better if they were actually aligned with some actual troops, but maybe they'll serve some purpose. We'll see. We'll see if we can use them to any advantage. All right, on we go. I forgot how cool these battles opened up when they're not nice plain fields with cav on both flanks. Protestant cav goes charging. Now, here's the problem. Some of them, kind of like this guy, stopped. You can see, this is gone now, but one of the Spaniards didn't get his interception roll, but the rest did, and they swept almost the entirety, well, no, the entirety of the rest of the Protestant cav away. Now, it wasn't completely a victory. You can see 1 Spanish unit's in here, and 1 Protestant unit is over here in the pursuit box, which chased it away. So they both lost 2 cav units in terms of where they are on the field. But bang, the cav armies are just gone. Now, over on this flank, the Protestant cav is much, much stronger than what the Spaniards have. Here it was about equally based. That's kind of weird because over on this side, it's going to be tougher to use the cav. That sucks for the Protestants. They would have rather had the stronger force here. If you had kind of a free setup, I think you would choose to put your stronger cav here and your lighter cav here with the intention of kind of defending with this cav. This stuff definitely doesn't want to just slam into the front of that infantry formation. So probably try to swoop around, go through this hedgerow. It's going to be a more complicated situation. That looks faster than cutting across here, getting shot up by the artillery perhaps, although cav are kind of able to avoid artillery, but mainly getting in the way of the infantry formation. We'll see where we end up though. This flank, you know, I hate losing my cav. In this series, it is so painful because the cav is potent. And if you lose the cav battle, as I feel the Protestants have here, they're outnumbered by the Spaniards. It might actually make more sense to swing this cav over and try to win the fight over here a little harder. I don't know. You got these woods here. The wagons aren't too big a deal. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. The hedgerow causes a formation hit. Trying to go through, that's a hedge-lined road, which may be a little different than a hedgerow itself. I don't know if there are hedgerows. Hedge hexsides would do it too. There's no easy way through here. That's kind of ugly, being pinned between perhaps fire from there and threats from the infantry. So swinging around seemed like the advantage in this direction, but that would take a while. What about charging in, crushing these, and then coming around the back here where the forest is, or maybe charging through the wagons if nothing can get in the way to defend them? That seemed cool. So I do that. Now I'm running right across where the guns are. I'm at a far enough distance though. This gun 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if you trace the line to there or to there, there it gets blocked by this. here it doesn't get an extra unit. Likewise here, fire could have gotten an extra unit perhaps, but there's a slope. Let me make sure the slope, yeah, slope going down, which blinds it for a few hexes. So the terrain actually worked well for the Protestants. However, I did get a preemption after they moved, stopping them from going further. Gave Cordoba a chance to run over here, work on rallying stuff. Just trying to play the system as much as I can to the advantage here. I like these open fields. And then after the infantry starts creating a traffic jam and a muddled mess moving up the middle and with those cav, the Spanish right comes in and tries to hammer into that cav. Now it does some damage, there's no question there, but we've just created a recipe for chaos. I don't know how I did this, but I'm so good at it. That's the end of the turn. We got a Protestant leader to check. Is eliminated. What's he? Right wing. Right wing's got to be replaced. We get this Ortenburg. I'll figure out where to put him and recover all the artillery and the leaders. The absolute craziness that are cav battles in this system continues. The force that Christian had some cav over here and most of it over here, all in command, kind of stringing through the infantry center that I shot up. That's particularly weird. But what happened was one of the units went charging out here and ended up striking one of the Catholic cav and destroying it, but chasing it off the board, which is good because it was out of command. It would confuse me because it would be near this other cav command of one unit. But then there was this kind of swirling battle here where a couple of units got attacked, and maybe just one. So I didn't activate this attack, which maybe I should. Yeah, I believe I should because he's got an advantage there. I started sending some curving around and some charging through that didn't get there. I'm going to finish this one up. I know I'm doing things kind of out of sequence, but you know, these cav battles turn into these swirling messes, and it's hard to keep track of what's going on, and this seems the most likely thing to have happened, and also to be a good result. But we don't get the continuation afterwards, that much I know, which means we'll be flipping over to the cav next to them, the Spanish cav there. Well, that looks like all for the second turn, and it was kind of exciting. After that cavalry duel going on both flanks, really, the Protestant infantry charged forward, got hit up by these artillery in position down here, and you can see they got kind of disrupted. They got disrupted all along the line. The Catholic infantry decided their best chance of rallying this unit was to charge in the center, as well as, hey, the Protestant line looks weak. They smashed into it here. They did some serious damage. I don't know whether we got any losses. I think we've got some. They hit some cav over here. Then they managed to do a receive charge and be able to reform. So the lines are broken. They're fighting now. You can see the Catholics got driven back here by the initial punch. The Protestants were trying to were kind of in a line coming down. They formed into something more solid, but then as they spread out, they got weakened by the artillery fire and maybe some cav disruption as well. More cav killed, more fun everywhere. All right, on to the next turn. We got to see whether or not we get a leader back. Ooh, we do. That's pretty exciting. Because we're running out of cav, actually. Those big cav wings, the big Protestant wings still there, but, you know, a lot of the cav's been wiped out. That's most of what we see as losses over here.